You're listening to Turn Your
Heart.
So we're here today discussing the Four Agreements. Samantha last week asked me what book in early recovery impacted me, and this book stood out very well.
So I know I mentioned Lucas on the last episode, my Rottweiler, and when he was a puppy, he got a hold of the book.
It adds character.
It does. Wouldn't trade it for the world.
Makes it that much more. So for me, when I first read this book, I was at a point in my life where, I think I discussed this last week, where I kind of knew nothing. I was like, I'm a toddler, I'm a baby, so teach me. This book taught me a lot, but even more so, a couple weeks ago, I read it again, and I'm like, this is juicy. And, and then I read it again, because the thing is it's like anything else, you could read it more than once and always get something more from it each time. So today we're going to discuss the beginning part of this book.
Wait, so who introduced it to you the first time?
So the first time I had gotten into one of my healthier relationships, and she was a holistic healer, and she introduced me to it. And yeah.
So wait, so your partner at the time gave you the book?
Mm-hmm.
That's my story too.
For real?
I swear to God.
No way.
I swear to God. Yeah, I got into a relationship.
What?
Yeah, I swear to God. I got into a relationship with, he was older than me. Looking back now, it's kind of ugh. But he was 25 and I was 18. Mm-hmm. It was kind of ugh. And he was going through a divorce.
Yeah, what's going on with him? Wait, divorce at 25? What's going on with him that he's probably not an 18-year-old?
Right. And me being 18 and impressionable, I thought I was cool. I was like, oh, I must be so mature.
Yeah.
No, that's almost predatory vibes, if you ask me. Yeah. So, but, either way, he gave me this book and wanted me to read it. So it's just funny that we both had partners that introduced us to this book. I feel like they were trying to tell us something.
Something? I mean, it even comes back full circle because it's apparent to where I'm at in life now, too. And the beginning, domestication and the dream of the planet. So this is the intro before we get into the agreements. But how I envisioned it when I was reading it is we dream all day long. We dream while we sleep, and we dream while we're awake. But while we're awake, we're centralized to a frame that is of a collective of a bunch of other people's dreams, which we call society. So now we're born into a dream that's not even ours, right? So then with that too is we have teachers and parents and and then they have laws and rules in this dream that's not even ours, right? So then our parents kind of teach us, in the book it says they domesticate us like dogs, right?
Yeah. It's a Pavlov thing with the Salvation with the Bell. You get rewarded for doing what they think is right.
Punishment reward
and you
system.
Get punished for what they think is wrong. And it's not even their own dreams. It's their parents' dreams and grandparents' dreams. And it's a whole, it's domesticated into, I was going to say it's bred into us, but it really kind of is.
Yeah.
But it is changeable. Yes. And I think that's the best part.
Right, for sure.
We're not stuck.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's the solution. You know what I mean? But even so, it just goes to show that we're not wrong in it. You know what I mean? But it's just learned behaviors from previous other people, and whether they were right or wrong, it's all based on interest, and it's kind of subjective. Mm-hmm. Where I like to be objective, right? And with that is knowing that is where we're coming from, we're able to look outside the box and kind of rewrite our story. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Now, I have a question for you because I don't think I've ever asked this. Mm-hmm. Prior to you, I don't want to say calling it hitting rock bottom, but that's what I pretty much call it. People think of hitting rock bottom as being on the bottom of the floor with a bottle and no one around. But my rock bottom was when I realized dude, this cannot be it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Did you know in your younger years that you could rewrite certain things and that you had so many learned beliefs that weren't serving you? Did you even know of that? I knew I could break out of society's mold, but not that I have subconscious beliefs that can be rewritten.
Right. So for me, it's like insanity, right? It's like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So for
Albert Einstein.
Right, Albert Einstein. So for me,
I need to shout out the people who, if I know, I know.
For sure. So for me, what the pattern was going on in my life is like, I did good, for a whole year. What I would do is I would build myself up, and then by the end of the year, I would destroy myself, and I would like burn every bridge. I would ruin every opportunity, and then I would start over again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I kept doing that for years, and it's like, it's not that I couldn't maintain. It's just like I would take good opportunities and I would ruin them, right? So like
self-sabotage.
I would self-sabotage, and like, it didn't matter where I lived or where I moved. It just kept following me, So like I knew I had to start changing things, right? And it started with one of my dad's friends, Charlie. I remember he came up to me at a fire when I was older, and he's like, David, I didn't know what to say to you as a child. He's like, what do you say to a young kid who just lost both his parents, And then at that age, he told me, he's like, David, he's like, the only thing I could tell you is do better than the generation before you. And so like I ran with that mantra, you know what I mean? I even ran with that mantra into like negative things too. But like a couple things was like, it was like my seeking to try to find myself. And like through these lessons of learning these things, I came to this overall solution. But like I went and I tried out at like my dad's job. He was a sheet metal worker. So like I passed the test, I got the job, and I was like, all right, okay, thanks, bye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then like when I was younger, I hung out with my dad was friends with a bunch of Hells Angels when we lived in Alaska. So like me joining 1% Club was like, oh, this is me like fulfilling things that my dad didn't fulfill, which wasn't the case at all, and like I did good in school, which my dad didn't. You know what I mean? Like I did things that my parents weren't capable of. Like even being a tattoo artist was my dad's dream, But like through that, like the leading thing that I couldn't seem to grasp was drugs and alcohol, and that's what killed my parents potentially. So like,
yeah, I was just gonna say, do you want to go into that a little bit, because we didn't talk about that at all in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, so it kind of goes into domestication. Like for me, growing up, I was surrounded by drugs and alcohol, bikers, drug dealers. My parents raised me as their friends, and which didn't really give me a childhood. So in tune, that just turned me into a monster, kind of. You know what I mean? I was a little savage as a kid. Like I was riding around with like chromed out bikes with ape hangers at like 6 years old with like leather jackets and
right.
like biker helmets and like covered in temporary tattoos, and like I fit that image and that mold. But like on the other side of that is like like my parents, like they drank a lot. They were great loving people, and I'm not going to take that away from them, but at a young age it's like I kind of in certain situations had to be the adult, and like I didn't have a normal childhood as many kids did. It wasn't board games, it was me like setting things on fire and shooting BB guns. And like, I remember one of my dad's friend's wife was a stage dancer. So I was in like a strip club at like 6 years old. You know what I mean? So like that was the lifestyle I was brought into. And
most kids are getting read to at night, and you're like, what's up, guys?
Right. So
yeah, you were definitely like a friend.
Yeah, but I'm grateful for that too, because it's taught me so much about life. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've been arrested a lot of times. I've gotten in a lot of trouble, but I've done it at like such a young age that I'm able to like mature from all that. I didn't continue that pattern, and that kind of goes into like rewriting things, right? So, my mom. So should I talk about their deaths and how they died?
If you want to.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it because I feel like that's part of growth, right? Like we have to share these things and we have to talk about them, and like that's it too. Is like I was discussing lately. It's like, yeah, I lost my parents, but like I'm grateful for it. You know what I mean? Where most people are like, oh, like David, and then I'm like, yeah, poor me.
Victim.
Mm-hmm. Nah, I'm grateful for it because they showed me what love is. They showed me like, and I'm grateful for the time that I spent with them. You know what I mean? Like some people don't have that time with their parents. And I can look back and remember good memories and like things that they taught me that I still carry on today. So none of the time was wasted, and I appreciate it, and I can like think about those times and it brings a smile rather than me being upset about it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So like, so my mom died when I was around 8. She had, my Uncle Harry killed himself, and they were close. That was her brother. And they were inseparable. So like when he killed himself, he took a nail gun, he put 2 in his mouth and 1 in his heart. You know, it's like kind of tragic.
Kind of, it was.
Yeah, really, really brutal. And my mom took it hard, so she wasn't eating or sleeping. She was just drinking and drinking and drinking, which in tune shut her body down, gave her pneumonia, and she got cancer from it. I found out years later, something with that. But she got hospitalized. So while she was in the hospital, she aspirated, she threw up and choked on her puke. So for 25 minutes, nobody was there while she was choking. So it gave her, right. So it gave her brain damage and like put her on life support. So basically, if she came out of it, she would have been a vegetable. So like at 8 years old, my dad came up to me and was like, David, we have to make a choice. And I'm like, oh shit. You know, like, do you want your mom to be a vegetable? Or do you want her, like, that's the only possibility? Or, like, do you want her to, like...
And he came to you to discuss that?
Yeah, it was a huge conflict with my family and stuff, too, that a lot of her brothers and other family members did not agree with, but it wasn't up to them.
Right.
You know, and it's like, well, you don't have to live with my mom. You know,
right.
You don't have to take care of her. You're not going to have to deal with this. And, like,
right.
knowing my mom, she was a peaceful kind of, like, hippie. You know what I mean?
She wouldn't have wanted to.
She wouldn't have wanted it that way. So we pulled the plug on her. And then, like... Not too far after. I mean, like, a lot of that kind of really molded me because, like, I saw my father, like, mourn loss of his wife. You know what I mean? Which is, like they were in love. You know what I mean? You know, so to watch him go through that was pretty traumatic, too, you know? So, like, we were supposed to move out of Connecticut, and we were going to go to California, and right before that, we were talking about redoing the house. We had all these good goals. My dad stopped drinking straight vodka and like started drinking beer. Like there was change and there was growth, and me and him were getting closer. And you know, so it was leading up to like a Christmas. And I remember waking up, it was Christmas Eve, and I remember walking through my whole house, and like I had this feeling not to go towards the bathroom. I remember seeing my dad's shoes and his keys, and I'm like, oh, maybe he went out and like got presents with a neighbor or something like that. It's right. Christmas Eve, you know.
And how old were you?
I was like 11 or 12.
Okay.
Something like that. It was all kind of a blur. A lot of trauma at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember walking towards the bathroom and seeing my father dead. He was laying there. Solid rock. He had a heart attack in the middle of the night because he had cirrhosis of the liver from drinking too much, and he fell and he smashed his skull in on the toilet, and he laid there. And when I saw him, all I can remember is like hitting him, punching his body, like, really, mother effer, you know, you're gonna leave me too,
right?
You know. And I put a lot of blame on him for many years, but in reality, you know, it's like the forgiveness comes into, like, they didn't know about the solution. They didn't know that there's like rooms and help and stuff like that. They didn't know.
Right.
You know, so it's like I'm able to forgive that, you know, and not put blame on anybody or myself or anything, you know, but like that's just what it is. And it's like, how do I learn from that, right? So drinking and drugging were like the only thing that I didn't change in my life that the generation before me died from, you know. So like that was a huge pivotal thing for me. And even so, as I go through life, you know, it's like I put myself into this badass category, like, oh, you don't get me, I'm unique, you know. Like I went to a rich high school too. I went to many different schools, but the white picket fence, you know, it's like deep down inside I'm telling myself I don't deserve that.
You were rejecting that.
I was rejecting what in tune is like, now I'm like, I deserve all that.
Yeah.
You know? But it's also like with that I'm finding myself in what I do like and what I don't like. But true to me, not to like what my parents' dreams were. And like that's it too, you know. It's like we talk about parents and domestication. There are heroes, you know. We look up to our parents, and it's like we fall short from them sometimes, you know, because their accomplishments, and whether we take it for a good or a bad, you know, it's like they're still like the shadow is casted on us from them. There's something Matthew McConaughey said. I love that dude. And he was at an award ceremony, and he's like, I want to thank my hero. I want to thank my movie producer, my wife, my fans, blah, blah, blah. You know, and he's like, you know who my hero is? Me. In 10 years, me. And I was like, what? I was like, I get it though, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's like, even today, we like look up to celebrities and like other people and stuff, but it's like, we're only going to fall short of their accomplishments. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, it's like, I like to look up to myself and the version of myself that I want to be. Not confined to anybody else's rules or laws or like, oh, you can't do that because you got tattoos, or you can't do that because, you know, you hang out with those people, whatever, man. You know, I find too is like, it's kind of true about the people you hang out with, but, you know, I've also like in tune, like I'm friends with doctors now. I'm friends with millionaires now. Like the encompass of like the bikers and the stuff that I hang out with, like I still love them. I still got respect. We still hang out, but it's also like I've branched out of that mental blockage I've had with what society tells me I can and can't do, right. You know? And it's beautiful, you know?
It's like taking the blinders off
mm-hmm.
and seeing that you don't have to live within these limitations that half the time we don't realize we're living by consciously.
Yeah.
And it's funny you mentioned the hero thing because I got asked, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, who my hero was. And and, you know, I can be like very direct with myself and others. And I said, me.
Yes.
Me.
Yes.
What do you mean? Who's my biggest hero? Me.
Mm-hmm.
I've pulled myself out of so much stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm here to rep me.
Yeah.
Like, I am here for me and myself and my growth and to see how well I can take advantage of the time that I'm here.
So like with that, and not to cut you off, but it's like in the first agreement is being impeccable with your word, right? Mm-hmm. And like spells and spelling and stuff. It's like the word parents, right? They're a pair that ends. So it's like by us finding ourselves and knowing that we are our own heroes, we're able to like envision that. And then like for me, it's like each day that I try harder and I push myself and I almost put on my own struggle. You know what I mean? Like in my own suffering, like. Because that's what we do. We suffer and we struggle in life, right? So it's like, I'm going to choose my suffering, right? It's like, I could smoke and drink and do all this, that's suffering. Or I can climb a mountain and run a marathon and do this, where it reaps more rewards. Mm-hmm. But in tune, my goal and what I'm going for is that version of myself in 10 years.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like, it's crazy because if I look back even 5 years ago when I started my journey, I did not even think I would be where I'm at right now. Like, no. And it's crazy too.
Wait. So I want to know, who was your hero prior to you realizing that you had been putting yourself on the back burner?
Mark Wahlberg.
Really? Really?
I mean, you know, he's got a similar upbringing story to me as me. You know what I mean? And I get told that I look like him a lot.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be cool to like meet him one day.
Yeah.
You know? But he's in the gym. He's somebody that's committed and like, you know, and it's like a lot.
He has discipline for sure.
Discipline is important. You know what I mean? No matter what it's in. And it's like, for me, I thought like discipline is like, oh, working out, stuff like that. No, like me studying for the other things that I have goals in my life right now. You know, it's like, I have to discipline myself in that. I have to discipline in relearning these behaviors that I learned from others that I don't want anymore, you know? And I was talking with a client today too. But like that's what it is. It's like we need to constantly try to rewrite this. It's like, all right, so we have this momentum going like this of these false things from like different people in the world and this and it's this snowball effect, right? Well, we gotta like slow that ball down, start going backwards into our new beliefs. But you notice how I did that? It's a little harder. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, this life is temporary, so it's like we're gonna keep getting older. We need to like get on the ball now.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I feel like overall, if I had to say whether I learned more or unlearned more during this process, and I will tell you, I had to unlearn so much more than I had to relearn. Mm-hmm. You know, because I wasn't even aware of, and this word I know you'll probably like because it's used in like the religious arena, but discernment.
Discernment.
I didn't have that. I kind of took on, well, first of all, I took everything personal.
Yep.
So anybody's opinion of me, I took on as my own. I didn't understand that I that's not like required.
Right,
I don't
right,
know how else to say it, but I didn't know that I had an option to pick up what I wanted to pick up and put down what I didn't want to take with me.
right.
I just took it all with me. I was so impressionable, you know? So I had to unlearn a lot of things. And I'll use an example because I think this is just so, like, I love my old self because I was so innocent. Like, I didn't know, you know? And I give my old self such compassion for not knowing. But that same boyfriend, and this is where we abuse ourselves more than we've ever been abused by others, right? This man said something to me one time. Yes. No, I love that. I cannot wait to get into that because it's so true. But at first you're like, I didn't. Yet we did, right? Yeah. He one time said that the perfect height for a woman is like 5'5". I'm 5'3". So when I tell you I wore heels every day for years, because his opinion of the perfect height of a woman became my opinion of myself.
Yeah.
And I wore heels for years until I realized, the heck am I doing? What is my idea of the perfect height for a woman?
Well,
his opinion and his value of me was worth more than my own value of myself. Right? And I'm looking for that external validation.
Right.
Because I didn't have it for myself.
Yeah.
So here I am wearing heels to appear 5'5". This is just one random man who's going through it, like, you know, like how does that have such gravity?
Well, I think what it goes into is like trust, right? So it's like we trust these people that are in our lives. Like, oh, I value this person, I look up to them, and like, so whatever they say is got to be the best, right? But what comes in tune, and like this goes into the religious aspect of things, is like we're all human.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, before we can trust anyone else, we got to trust ourselves. And I think a lot of that, what that is, and like the domestication, what we need to know what's true for us, you know, is like, that's that trial and error. And it's also like, you know, because like I could take on a lot of different people's beliefs. Somebody that I feel like is more educated than me is like, oh yeah, they're right. But in tune is like, does that sit right with me? Is that true to me? You know, I found that a lot with like on my like search to have like a stronger connection with God. It's like, you know, I have a lot of other people that believe in God around me. But like, just because God's showing them something doesn't mean that's what he's showing me.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then trusting that instinct within yourself to like see how, like, so like when I first got clean, right? The thing is like, I wanted to be light as a feather. I wanted to feel light in my heart, right? So anything that didn't make me feel that way, I questioned. I'm like, wait, why am I feeling this way? So with that is like, I would set that boundary to kind of be like really like resonate on it, right? To be why. And like, even if it was in my brain, I would try to like shift my perspective on it into a way that like sits better with me. Does that make sense?
It does.
You know what I mean?
It's like you were starting to have self-awareness.
Self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
So like, I still do that today. If I feel like uncomfortable in a situation, which I didn't before, I just ran with it. Oh, I'm uncomfortable? I'm uncomfortable all the time. Whatever.
Me too.
You know?
I would resist and just bulldoze my way through it. When my body's like,
And
no,
like
no.
with that, you end up losing yourself because
Yes.
you're on this path to try to find yourself, and then it's like, then you're sitting there like, what? I hate everything about this.
Yeah, yeah. I never had an insecurity over my height until that day, right? And this is just one sentence that didn't probably carry a lot of weight for him. It was just a comment.
Right.
He may not even have been talking about me.
Right.
But because I attached a whole story and value system and belief.
Right.
Right? And I think it even goes a step deeper than that, like being raised in the society, in Western culture as a woman, like the pressures to look a certain way or be a certain way or appeal to the masses is so ingrained in us at such a young age. That if this man that I'm in a relationship with says the perfect height of a woman is 5'5", he said that in passing. If I asked him if he ever remembers that, it's a no. But I attached such a high importance to that.
Right.
And let it run how I wore my clothes.
Right.
That's insane to look back on.
So like with that, and it talks about that in the domestication, right?
Yeah.
It's like seek of approval from people we love or look up to, right? And it's like that reward and that punishment thing.
Okay, so I want to read this because it kind of closes out what I was saying about the heels. So here's an example that they have in the book. You awake in the morning feeling very happy. You feel so wonderful. You stay 1 or 2 hours in front of the mirror making yourself beautiful. Well, one of your best friends says, what has happened to you? You look so ugly. Look at the dress you're wearing. You look ridiculous. That's it. That is enough to put you all the way down in hell. Maybe this girlfriend just told you this to hurt you. And she did. She gave you an opinion with all the power of her word behind it. If you accept the opinion, it becomes an agreement now. So when he mentioned the height thing, I made that an agreement, even though it was just an opinion. I chose to do that.
Yep.
You know, unbeknownst to me at the time.
Spells.
Right. And so now, once you accept it and it becomes an agreement, you put all your power into that opinion, and that opinion becomes black magic.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, they go further into how to break the spell is to make a new agreement based on truth.
Well, what's cool with that, too, is, like, spelling. Get it? Because, like, the words, they're spells.
No, it's incredible.
It says, in your whole life, nobody has ever abused you more than you have abused yourself. Right. So, I think it talks in here, too, about how, you know, we stay with people that almost reaffirm our feelings about ourselves. No,
I love that whole section. I love that whole section where they were like, if you complain that you're in an abusive relationship,
right,
that abusive relationship is not abusing you more than you've abused yourself. Yes.
Right.
But I think that's where like the fog comes in, because if you ask somebody that, they're
Right.
like, no, I know I deserve better. I know I deserve more.
And the fog, mitote, is what they say in the book, and I really like how they say that, mitote, which is like, it's like if you go to the mall, right, Christmas time, there's all these people, well, it's like, there's like millions of thoughts all over. It's like in your head, your mitote. This is what the Toltec in the Four Agreements said, mitote. So
He likes that word.
I like that. Dr. Emoto, right? He specializes in magnifying ice. I know it sounds crazy, but what he does with this ice is he like sees like the molecular whatever, like these little fragments in there, right? So he did this test and he took 3 jars of water, and in those jars of water he put rice. Everything is natural, organic, no preservatives, nothing, blah blah. Through a trial of like, I think it was like a 3-month period, every single day he'd go up to one of the jars and say thank you. The second one he said I hate you, and the third one he would ignore. So after this trial, he froze all the water. He looked at it under a magnifying glass. And the first one he said thank you to, it came to these beautiful crystals. The one he said I hate you to was dark and distorted. And the third one he ignored, it rotted, right? So like with that, our bodies are made up, I think it's like 60 to 70% water. And that's what we're saying to ourselves. So if that's what happens to the water when you speak to it, what are we speaking to ourselves? What are we thinking to ourselves and to our own body?
Right.
What are we allowing other people to speak to our bodies?
Right.
I ain't got time for that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We got to set these boundaries, and we got to like build hedges. Like, this is my grass, that's your grass, and like set boundaries and protect ourselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? And we got to speak highly and be gentle to ourselves, you know, with love, joy, peace, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I feel like that's a part of the second agreement, where take nothing personally, where when you almost build this shield, because you have such a, you know, you have like a barrier where if someone can say something to you and because you're not taking anything personal, it's not gonna hit you like it would if you did take it personal. You know what I mean? And I think, like, I know for me, as far as like my healing journey, that I would attribute it, the majority of my healing, to just adapting that concept, that don't take anything anybody says personal. And the way I was able to do that is through Joe Dispenza, because him and Bruce Lipton are like 95% of people are running on autopilot. So when they're speaking these things to you, they're really speaking that about themselves. They're not saying that about you. You could pull you out of the situation and put somebody else back in, and they're going to say the same thing. So don't take anything personal, because it's not about you.
Right. So it's like how my ex called me a sober loser, and I'm just like, huh.
But you were able to discern that and be like, I know for a fact that's not.
And that comes down to the self-love, self-awareness, like self-care. You know, turn your heart on.
you know? So, like...
Turn that Kina heart on, man. Okay, yeah.
And just don't have a big mitote. You gotta, like, simmer that down. And with that, too, is, like, how we're talking about, like, thoughts and thinking and all these things going on and on, is, like, meditation. You know, like, meditation has been huge for me to be able to slow down the brain a little bit. Because for me, I loved cocaine, right? And, like, with cocaine, you think a lot, you talk a lot, you just, you can't really sleep well. So I remember when I stopped using substances altogether, I still had a hard time sleeping. So with that, I, like, trained my brain into be able to, like, shut off those thoughts. You know what I mean? Or slow them down so I don't have a big mitote, you know? So...
Yeah.
So with that, though, the meditation, it's able to, and a lot of people have a hard time with meditation, and they're like, oh, well, I'm thinking too much, and it's like, okay, that's cool. That's the problem. Now the solution. That's the whole point of meditation, is to be able to break past that. And, like, don't get me wrong, when I first started meditating, I couldn't do that, but I was also, like, in the hood, in a sober house, with people outside screaming, like, I was forced to, like, callous my mind in a way to be able to shut off everything, not get distracted, and, like, really find that peace.
Yeah.
And that was a foundation. That's a huge building block for my foundation, was meditation and being able to calm the mind.
Well, I can tell you, like, I think I don't know how other people feel about it, but I've heard the same thing, that a lot of people have a hard time with meditation, and it's because it's for the first time in a long time you're alone with your thoughts, and you don't like what they're saying. So it's easier to be like, this isn't for me, or, like, yoga,
Right.
You're like, I don't have time for that.
Right.
No, you don't want to know what's really going on.
Right.
You've been running on the survival mode for so long that you're scared to hear what your own thoughts are.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot more to that, too, as far as, you know, excuses, you know, and, like, things of not digging deep into those deeper traumas and things that keep us from that, because that's what the whole 12 steps are about. You know what I mean? Letting go and, like, kind of digging a little deeper under the surface of why we use drugs and alcohol. Why do we act out? Why do we play the victim? All those things, there's a deeper rooted thing and a learned behavior from our childhood. You know, I was reading this thing the other day where it's like, or I don't know if we were speaking about it, but our theta wave, right?
Mm-hmm.
From age 1 to 7, you are in your theta waves. And, like, that's where you're most...
0 to 7.
Yeah, 0 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with that, too... So I read somewhere else as well. Einstein and Thomas Edison,
Mm-hmm.
they were in their theta waves a lot, right? And we are still now, but when we're in our theta waves is right when we wake up in the morning, right before we go to sleep. Thomas Edison actually used to put a silver platter on the ground and take a small cannonball, and he would fall asleep, and then the ball would hit the pan and he'd wake himself up, and he'd start writing his ideas down. You know,
I've never heard that.
Right. So with that too, what's cool about that is, the problem is, what do we do right when we wake up and right before we go to sleep?
Right.
We're on our phones. We're on TV. We're on these things that it controls us. You know what I mean? And it programs us. You know, and that's when we should be reading books. That's when we should be paying attention to our thoughts and what we're intaking. You know, so I think there's a lot of good stuff that we touched on today.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just barely scratched the surface with the book, but it's such a good book. It's an easy read, and it has so many gems, if you will, in it. As you can see, like, all the bookmarks and stuff like that. So, yeah. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Okay, so you did the Audible. Is it for free on YouTube?
It's not for free. Audible, I think it's like $1 credit or something like that.
Okay.
It's cheap enough.
So they don't have
I
the
think
free.
it's cheaper than buying the book.
Because I do all the free books on YouTube because
Really?
Yeah. All the ebooks that I've, like, listened to, I found them for free on YouTube.
Okay.
So there might be a version.
Yeah.
Because this came out in 1997. So I'm sure somebody at some point uploaded the audio version for free.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Come back every Friday at 3 o'clock. We always have a new weekly episode. You can find us on Instagram. I'm at Samantha.Valley.
I'm at DMND David.
And we'll see you next Friday. Bye.